Welcome to episode 241 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio drama, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and we discuss it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
Melissa?
Hello.
I'm
doing
so
fine.
Far.
How was your weekend, Ben?
Spent most of yesterday doing nothing, which was fantastic. I do have some interesting plans next week that you guys will hear in full on the Captain's Log, I guess, in like 2 weeks or so after that. But big week with like Ant-Man, my secret plans.
You tease these. I have no idea.
There is like that like right after that next week. Some fun stuff coming up. Fun stuff indeed. What about you, though?
Nice. Yesterday I went to go see the 25th anniversary 3D re-release of Titanic. Covered previously on the review show. This was my movie for Shame-Timber last year. I had never seen all of Titanic, and I did thoroughly enjoy myself watching it all for the first time as an adult. And not like a nervous child who made her mom turn it off when the ship starts flooding.
How was the 3D in that?
It was gorgeous. This movie looked so good. The 3D does so much to add like depth and scale and distance in this movie. I think it really adds to the experience. I've never seen a boob in 3D before. I don't know when I'll get to have that experience again.
Boobs in 3D.
First time getting to see a lot of things in 3D.
Great reason to go to the cinema, indeed.
No matter what you like, one boob, a sinking ship, late character actor Bill Paxton,
Good
you can see
stuff.
all of it in 3D.
But that's not what we're here to talk about this week. Melissa, what are we here to talk about this time?
We are talking about an audio drama. This is a 10-episode audio drama from, I believe, 2020 called The Left-Right Game. This is one I did listen to, I think, sometime that year when it was still pretty fresh. And I wanted to have you give it a listen. I thought you'd enjoy it. We both have a pretty good audio drama background here.
I really enjoyed the premise. The sound design in this is fantastic. I know it won some awards for sound design. I don't know what exactly. Tessa Thompson stars as the main character. There's some really, really neat and incredible stuff in this. It's not without its problems. I will say that, but it's good. It's fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm happy you enjoyed it. I had a busy week at work. I knew I was going to be working some overtime, so I pitched you 3 audio dramas. So I'm like, well, I can do those while I'm working. I can't do that with a comic book or something. And it was a nice propulsion to my week to know, like, okay, every day I get to listen to like 2 episodes of this thing that is about travel, that's about transportation, about going to some wondrous place. So it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah,
just being stuck here at my desk.
Go anywhere, and I work from home, all that stuff. I was like, well, let me do some chores and stuff. Listen to this. So I was just sitting there washing dishes and stuff like that. But yeah, the sound design in this, I think, is a particular strength of the show. For better or for worse, and just really but the whole thing is, I guess, kind of sponsored by Sonos, and I have a Sonos speaker in my home. Did not listen to the podcast on that. I know I could have if I had used like Apple Podcasts or something like that. But I use a different podcasting app that does not connect with the Sonos speaker, unfortunately. But I mean, and this is not an ad for Sonos, but I really do like their speakers. Their speakers are fantastic. However, I did hate their proprietary app. I think it's awful. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. They do have really good sound quality. And they do this thing where they can like tune the speaker to the room you're in and stuff. So you start this thing where it like sends out this like signal, this like high pitched like beeping sound, and then you have to walk around the room with your phone as silently as you can, like waving it up and down for it to like map that room with like sonar. Yes, something like that. I don't know.
Echolocation.
But then it like adjusts the EQ and stuff to make it like the best sound for that room, which I think is neat. So, but enough about that. More about the podcast.
Yeah.
Melissa, what did you think? This is your second time listening to this. So was this better upon the second time checking it out?
This podcast does have, I know this is a weird word to use, really striking imagery. Like it really puts these pictures in your head that are very memorable, that I have remembered in like the last year and a half, 2 years since I've listened to this, that I wanted to revisit, that I wanted to stick into your head too. The audio design is one of the big strengths. Like you get a lot of information just from the audio design, just from like the Foley of it, which is good and is sometimes kind of tricky. Like at one point later on in the series, a character gets a very severe injury. And it's not until they talk about it like sometime later that I'm like, that's what happened.
That is like the one thing that I will say about the show, spoiler free, that I did not like. As great as the sound design is, it's tricky to like, because it feels like they're trying to do the show me, don't tell me thing, but it's an audio podcast. They literally can't show me, and so if they're not showing me, and they're not telling me, I'm kind of stuck on some things, and there was a lot of this that I felt like I could piece together what was happening. Like I could imagine in my head what was happening. And most of the time it turned out I was correct. But then you could either say that that's like really good sound design and good writing to like clue you in, or you could say it's bad sound design because I didn't know what was happening exactly and the writing wasn't there to support it. And so I just kind of had to guess and hope for the best. So it's, but like, it was enough that I could kind of figure it out, but it also like had me try and figure it out. Which I was just like, tell me what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah. I will say that there's an excellent cast in this, and everybody does sound very distinct, and there's not an overwhelming number of characters. I know sometimes that can be a barrier when I'm starting a new audio drama, is that there's too many voices at once. And by the time, like, I can't stick around to train my ears to recognize everybody because I'm already so confused. Like every once in a while that can happen through possibly nobody's fault of my own, just like my ears not being dexterous enough. But vocally, I think this is a very easy podcast to listen to.
You guys can get this wherever podcasts are sold. I mean, it's 10 episodes. Most of them are closer to that like 30-minute mark, but there are a few that like get up to that like 40 minutes to an hour. But yeah, let's do a premise for people who might not know what this is, and are us must being like, it was a great sound design. They have not sold you yet. The sound of what? What are they sounding?
Sound of what? Tessa Thompson plays Alice, who is a young journalist who finds this thing called the left-right game, which is this sort of urban legend folk game where you start in a town with some sort of a grid system to it. You drive, you take a left, a right, a left, a right, a left, a right, a left, a right, and you do this over and over and over again. And eventually you just cross some sort of metaphysical barrier and you're not in that town anymore. You're in some other plane of existence. So for a story, she travels along with this caravan of cars. It's led by like some guy who's like played the game before. He's this older man. He's got sort of like a rich history of all sorts of odd jobs and fascinating stories. And this is like his latest fascination. And there's all these other people in their own cars on this trip who everybody's got a code name. Yeah, everybody's background's kind of mysterious. You're trying to piece together, like, why are they here? What's everybody's purpose for going on this mysterious, like, very dangerous exploration? And the framing device for all of this is that Alice's old college friend, he hasn't heard from her in like a year. They lost touch. He gets an email from her with an audio file that is her recording this trip. And he's like, weird. I haven't heard from Alice in forever. It's strange I got this email from her out of the blue. And he's talking to his mom. Like, I heard from Alice today. And she's like, who is Alice?
Yeah.
He's like, Alice, we were like flatmates in college. You kept telling me I should ask her out. And she's like, I don't know who that is. And he realizes he's the only person who knows who Alice is anymore. She has like, once she like passed that barrier and is now in the world of the left-right game, she has ceased to exist on Earth. And since she's found some way to email him these audio files of her travels, he's the only person who knows she exists. So he's trying to get some sort of proof she was real and try and find her.
The show has a really great setup. It kind of does these like two-part story where most of the episodes start with this guy trying to find her and just be like, what happened to her? Was she worked at this place? Let me call them to see what. And so he's trying to track her down and find her. And then, we spend like 10 minutes with him ish. And then it transitions to the other side, the other plane of existence where Alice is with this caravan documenting their adventures, the strange encounters, the mysterious things that happen, the lies that she might catch some of the characters in and stuff like that. It's a very, very interesting premise. I do have to say, I also don't think the name of the show is all that great, but it's like, what else could you call it? But like, it's just the left-right game. It sounds dumb, but it like, that's kind of the idea of that game. Like it's supposed to be this dumb sounding thing. Oh, you just do left and right and then left and then right and then left and right. And suddenly you're in some paranormal plane of existence. That sounds stupid. But she's just like, what? There's people out there that believe this. Let me investigate. So yeah.
I like it. I like how the title of the podcast is exactly what like the name of the game is, and it really lends itself to something
Jumanji.
Like the elevator button game or like playing Bloody Mary in a mirror or something.
Yeah. So I don't have much else spoiler free to say on the left-right game. Go check it out. A quick 10 episodes. And that being said, we will take a quick break for some housekeeping. And when we get back, we will dive into it and start discussing some spoilers and stuff like that. So we will be right back. Here at the Whatnauts, we make multiple different shows, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. If you enjoy our shows, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is the best place to show your support. For just $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and at our $3 tier, a Patreon-exclusive podcast, The Pilots Club. You can even get a shout-out and thank you on most of our shows at the $5 tier. And if you're one of our patrons already, thank you so much. It means the world to us. You can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in The Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch for video versions of the shows, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something else, head over to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. All right, we are back A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters once again. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Puchinsky is our Patreon Pilots Club episode this month. What a show, man. What a wild one that was. Cop gets killed, reincarnated as a dog, and is now a bulldog detective. Kind of wild. But that was a lot of fun to talk about. Once again, that's at our $3 tier on Patreon. For the Pilots Club. Last week here on the review show, Melissa and I did some Red Sonja comics. I've been wanting to get some more sword and sorcery stuff here on this show. It's a genre we have not really explored all that much. And so I was just like, let me have a couple sword and sorcery pitches, and this was our first one. Red Sonja, written by Gail Simone, 18 issues of that, so go check that out. The Last of Us, we are still doing our reactions to that. It's Super Bowl weekend, the weekend we're recording this, so they released their most recent episode on a Friday instead of a Sunday night like they typically do. So we already have our reactions up to number 5. If you guys would like to go check that out. Last week was the calm before the storm, and this week things erupted on that show. It was wild. So yeah, go check all that stuff out. And then on the Captain's Log this past week, we got to catch up on some pop culture news, some things we've been watching, some comics we've been reading. Melissa, you got back into watching all the Scream movies because Scream 6 is about to come out.
6 is going to come out in a couple weeks. Yeah, so I've rewatched or watched for the first time the first 4. 5 is soon. This is the year where I'm really catching up on every franchise that is a new movie in theaters, because I watched all the John Wicks. We're watching all of the Fast and Furious movies here on the review show once a month, so we'll be all caught up by the time Fast 10 comes out. I wasn't able to see Fallout in theaters, but since then I have watched all the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah.
Something else we did on this podcast. So we're ready. Absolutely. We're ready for all of these sequels.
You did remind me, we also did a trailer reaction to Fast 10. If you'd like to go see me and Melissa reacting to that trailer, it's up on our YouTube channel. Of course, we've only seen the first 3 Fast and the Furious movies right now, so we don't have the full context, except for like the cultural zeitgeist of just like what we've osmosis, whatever, osmonized.
Yes, osmonized. We've jonesed
we had a blast with that, so go check all of that stuff out. With that being said, let's get on to some spoilers. Everything is playing out of my speakers. I don't understand why. The end song for our podcast is playing out of my speakers and not my headphones. That spoiler alert thing out of my speakers, not my headphones. The housekeeping video out of my speakers, not my headphones. I'm so confused. I changed one thing. It messed everything up. Oh well. Spoilers. The left-right game. Melissa, where do you want to start with this?
What did you think about the world that they enter into? I think that is my favorite part of this podcast, is how it just subtly shifts from, we're in Phoenix, Arizona. We're driving the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona. Now things are weird. We still look like we're in some sort of a southwestern landscape, but now like the city's not behaving the way it's supposed to anymore.
I like the idea because like this, in a weird way, this podcast felt very familiar. And I think it's because like once they get into this paranormal world, it feels like stuff like Night Vale or it was King Falls. That's the one that we did a long time ago. Yeah, it felt like
King
stuff
Falls
like that. Where they're in this
like
weird town or weird place where just these mysterious things happen, right? Or uncanny county. I know that's a favorite of of yours.
Thank you. I like that you still haven't listened to Uncanny County, but you know it just from me mentioning it over and over again, that it also fits stuff like in this genre.
Yeah, like it feels like that. And so I felt like I could settle in and just be like, okay, like I wasn't necessarily surprised by any of the stuff that happened in the show because it felt so familiar. But I liked all of the stuff that they did. I particularly liked the hitchhiker. I like how some of the weird some of the weird things get explained, some do not. There are weird thing, like the first weird thing you see on the other side is this woman, and they're told to just ignore her and keep going. She looks like this older, or I'm not sure if she looks older, but just like, oh, shouldn't we stop and help her or see what she's doing here? It's another human, right? Like they must be playing the game. And he's just like, no, by no means, do not talk to her. Like, don't do any of that. Just keep going.
Yeah.
And
that one is early enough that they're still fairly close to like Phoenix. And it's is this like an actual citizen? Is this a real world person who's coming up to our car because she needs help or something? And then Rob, the leader, is like, no, she's one of the known landmarks here on the road. Just ignore her.
And then, of course, the next human that you see is the hitchhiker. But I don't remember if it was after the hitchhiker or just slightly before when they see the car that's like the crashed car. Yeah, but it's that
it's right around there
car that are explained, as well as some other story. What was the main dude's name in this? Rob. Yes, Rob J. Guthard. I have
Rob J. Guthard.
Wikipedia pulled up with all of the names here. I thought the voice actor that played him, W. Earl Brown, was fantastic. One of the best performers. I mean,
outstanding. I want to say today is Super Bowl Sunday. So last night, trying to learn something about football, I watched the movie Draft Day, which is you see very little actual gameplay of football. No. I don't think it helped me. I think it made me more confused. Okay. But he's in it. And like, I didn't even know he was in it. I didn't see his name in the credits, but as soon as he starts talking, it's like, I know that voice. That's him.
I have seen him. He's also in Deadwood. He's in Being John Malkovich. He's in some as well as such series as Seinfeld, NYPD Blue, CSI, The X-Files, 6 Feet Under. He's in Preacher. This guy's all over the place.
I like, it's a name I know, and once I saw him in the movie, like, right, him. I've seen him in a dozen things over my lifetime. He's just one of those working, reliable actors.
He does the voice and motion capture for the character of Bill in The Last of Us. The Last of Us video game, one of my favorite video. Wow, this is wild. I have never, like, I'm not familiar with this guy in the like household. Like, I don't know his name. I've never known his name, but he's in so much stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I want to say also, there's another character in the caravan named Blue Jay. This very crabby older woman who's an absolute skeptic who is on the trip just to disprove it, played by Colleen Camp. And I'm like, I know that name. I looked her up. She's Yvette the maid from Clue many years ago. Again, another like actor who just works, who you've seen in a dozen different things. And I'm really happy that they got the chance to shine and for you to focus in on like just their voices, because they both have outstanding voices.
Like there's a few performances in this that I think really, really stand out, but I like obviously they put Tessa Thompson front and center. I think she has the recency bias of like, you've seen her as Valkyrie and Thor and just stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I almost have to say I felt like Rob's character was a better performance. I felt Tessa Thompson in this was just kind of middle of the road. No offense. I mean, she's not bad by any means, but I think Rob's performance here was just that much. Just like I like it. I like this character. He's fantastic.
Yeah. He's just so folksy and warm, and I like that when you meet him, he's just got very sort of short, simple answers to things. He's like, yeah, I was in the war, and then I came home and I'm married, and that didn't work out. And like Alice in her narration is like, that's all he has to say on the entirety of the Vietnam War. Like,
I just.
But I think because Alice is the journalist, because she is sort of supposed to be kind of an outsider, kind of documenting things. I can't imagine yeah, like I think that aspect of her performance is
which is purposeful. Why I don't think it was a bad performance by her, but I just found myself like really paying more attention to Rob and his stuff, because he can get very short and very quiet. But then he also has things where he just won't shut up. He is so passionate. He's tripping over his words and stuttering, and you can tell he's like he's salivating in the way that he's speaking and the sounds he's making. Like, when you get on some big rant or something, and your mouth just starts salivating, and you got all this like spit in your mouth, and you just have to like stop and swallow after a bit. It's a very
you can
wet
hear how wet his mouth is.
Great.
Yes. Yeah. I hear you. I understand. Yeah. I think it's really endearing automatically. Like, he reminds you of like your dad or your grandpa or like an uncle or one of their friends or something like that. Like he feels specifically very familiar in a more personal way amongst the genre traffic.
I do want to get back to your question though of what did I think of like the atmosphere and the plane of existence that they were on. I liked it because it was familiar. I mentioned that. I also feel like there was also nothing there, which is weird, and I don't know if I really liked all that much. I guess that is the weird thing of you're in this other plane of existence. It's not like what you know. But that's the thing is like you take a left, take a right, take a left, so on and so forth. Then you come across this tunnel. And no matter where you're playing the game, there's always this tunnel. You go in the tunnel, and on the other side is this plane of existence, right? But that's the thing. I don't think they really described like, well, if you pass the tunnel and look back, do you see the rest of the city? Does this mean you've exited the city, or are there still some buildings right there on the opposite end of this? They don't really describe that as much, and I kind of wish they would have. But I like I said, it was familiar enough that I felt comfortable. So,
I do like the world building around this game and how they talk about how you can play it anywhere. It's helpful to start in a city that's got like a big grid system where you can take that many left and right turns and not hit like cul-de-sacs or dead ends or whatever. And they just happen to be playing in Phoenix because it's built like that. I like that everybody's got the tunnel, and when you're on the road, it can feel like you're just on a normal road, like you're just in Arizona somewhere. Like, I like that the weird stuff is like kind of few and far between at the beginning and then just slowly builds. I like that it's more quietly surreal at the beginning, where it's like, this is just like a big barren patch of desert until Rob tells you, all right, it's been recorded that if you keep driving, you will meet the hitchhiker. You must let the hitchhiker into your car, but you do not speak to him. The idea that this has all been to some degree traveled and mapped before by Rob, or were like by people Rob has met on like a message board or whatever, that there is known lore. There are rules to where you are going. I like the rules and the structure of this like mystical world. You imagine you're going to go through this portal and it's like, well, everything's wild and upside down. It's like that episode of Simpsons where Homer eats the chili pepper that's too hot. There's no rules. It's wacky. Or it's like, no, it's a desert. You drive for a long time in the desert and you meet this one landmark and you must treat it this way. And just the farther they get, the like weirder things are. And eventually they do cross this path where it's like, this is the farthest anyone has gotten. From here on out, everything is new. We don't know the rules. We have to learn them as we go. And just the idea that there are rules. Everything must have rules. Nothing is just happening. Like, you have to whatever you encounter, there must be a specific way that you treat it.
That's
and we have to figure out what that is.
Like, it is this weird paranormal plane of existence. We don't know exactly. Rob, says he found these rules online. Of course, it later comes out that he's the one that originally posted them with an alt account, right? So he's the one that has been mapping this out. He's making up these rules. It was him and his son. And bad things started to happen for sure. And I think that's why he's taking the rules so seriously. But it's like, he's also not a scientist. Like, he's not really studying the rules in any kind of scientific way to kind of determine what the rules should actually be. He's almost just being like, okay, something bad happened. Let's just avoid it entirely. Don't talk to this person. Like, don't don't avoid this. Turn here when you see that. Do this thing. And so I feel like it's almost a set of rules made out of like fear and survival, like just like we're just not gonna mess with stuff as much as we can. But that makes me question, like, is that like, does that rule really need to exist? Can you talk to the hitchhiker? What if you say a certain thing? What if you're strong-willed enough to just not do what he that's the thing with like Jedi mind tricks. They don't work on everyone, right? If you're strong-willed enough, you can resist them.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something like that in there.
Well, we do see a consequence of what happens when you do break those rules, because we've got one pair of travelers are these siblings. They're these older siblings, and their nicknames are Bonnie and Clyde. There's a very sweet backstory to the two of them and why that's their names. And she talks to the hitchhiker. Like, I think he sneezes and she says, "Bless you." And like, that's enough that he can like lock in on her. Like, whatever spell has been broken now that she has talked to him. She's like invited him into her like a vampire or something. And he tells her the story, not a story, but he pitches her like, oh, if you keep driving up this way, you're going to, there's a turn and you can take the turn to this little town called Wintry Bay and beautiful houses there. What's your name? Bonnie? Bonnie, you could have a house there. Just a sweet little house by the bay. And this like infects her. Like, they're driving along the road and they take a left and she's like, no, it was right. We needed to take a right. And everybody panics for a moment. And they're like, no, we were supposed to take a left. And she's like, oh, I was mistaken. Sorry. I guess it was a left. And then the farther they go, the worse it gets, where she's like, we have to turn back. I have to go there. I have to go there. And it's not constant. Like, she has these moments of lucidity where it's like, I don't know what I was saying back there. I'm sorry to stress all you guys out. I'm really happy to be on this trip. When is our next turn? Where are we going? Like, it's really sad to watch her like fall into this pit of traveling towards something that we have no proof is evil.
Her story, I think, was one of, if not the most interesting thing to me in this whole podcast, because I feel like there's two different ways you can read what happened to her, right? There is the like sickness and disease read, right, where she is someone who has Alzheimer's, or just like you as a listener, you might be able to relate to what's happening to her because maybe you know a family member that has Alzheimer's, right? And she ends up, because like she starts talking more and more about Wintry Bay to the point where she speaks up in like heatedly, just being like, no, we missed our turn, like all that stuff, to the point where she's just in another time and place, right? Like she wants to keep going back to Wintry Bay in that one turn with that had the sign. And like you said, it's painful to just like watch her do this and just lose a I was about to say lose a grip on reality, but again, they are in this like paranormal place, right? So it like, but just still like, to not to lose those moments of lucidity where she's so stuck back there and everyone's like, no, we're not there, you're here with us, like that. I thought was really interesting. The second way you can read that situation is a more religious angle, where she is a person of faith, for example, Christianity, where even that religion uses stuff like they have a place prepared for you. And that's kind of what it, like how they were talking about Wintry Bay. That's what the hitchhiker made it sound like. You have a home there. It's already ready for you. It's prepared. And she buys in, right? And she's just like, she's never seen it. She doesn't know if it's real or not, but she has this incredibly strong faith, which I don't want to downplay someone's faith. I actually quite respect it, but you can see like the flip side of that coin of how someone's faith might appear detrimental to someone else, of just like, oh, I'm losing them. Like they've bought into this thing and believe it so adamantly, so wholeheartedly that it's tearing them apart from their family, and it's just sad, right? And that to me was just like, that was beautiful, that was amazing. And then the response that her brother has to just want to kill himself, basically, to just like, I'm basically just gonna go follow her directions to this Wintry Bay thing, and I'm just gonna go off into who knows what.
She like steals a car, she drives off that way, and you see her just like evaporate, like she just dissolves into dust, like at the end of Infinity War or something, when she takes a wrong turn, goes towards where she thinks Wintry Bay is. And her brother, who's got this really sweet story about how like, it seems like they grew up in a small town, like there weren't that many people around, they were kind of isolated, like she got married young and then her husband died young, so she's been a widow for decades, and they kind of always just had each other. He's like, where she goes, I go. Like, I don't know what my life is without her. So if she's dead, I have to go die too. If that even is what happened, I don't know. I don't know what that was, but it has to happen to me too. And they've like traveled beyond that point, and it like there's camping for the night, and he makes this decision, and Alice is like, I'll I don't want you to do that alone. I'm going to walk with you. So they walk like 2 hours there for him to take this wrong turn and end everything, more or less. And then she just has to walk back for 2 hours by herself, dealing with what she just saw. It's so haunting. And so
it's
like
not a
touching,
like violent
also.
suicide, right? Where he just like takes some kind of gun or weapon and ends it right there. But it is this thing you have to be very prepared for, right? It's a 2-hour walk to get where they needed to go to do this thing. But he was so determined and so like had so much love for his sister, right? That he was just like, this is just what I have to do. If there's a chance that like, I mean, they're already in some supernatural plane of existence. Why can't there be another one? Right? Like, if there's a chance, I need to go and be with her. And yeah, it's better sweet to see them go. I liked that a lot for sure.
I also think the name Wintry Bay is so fascinating because it sounds mysterious, and that you can't imagine a bay being named like that because it's not necessarily aspirational. Like, I want to retire somewhere where it's always winter. I want to be right on the water in the winter. And they're in the Southwest, so it's like, how far away is that? It feels so distant. You've got such a hard time picturing it. It's a really interesting place
that's
name,
the only
as opposed to something else like
Wintry Bay.
There's
no other description of like, oh, it's townhouses. There's some high rise apartment buildings. Bonnie, you could have the penthouse suite. It's prepared. Like, no, just Wintry Bay. There are houses there. It seems nice. That's it. That's all we got.
Yeah. Who else is there? What happens in Wintry Bay? Is it literally winter? It's so right. Do you ski there? It's so mysterious. I also really like Jubilation. Like, as they drive through, they realize like, okay, we don't have any signal on our phone, but our phones just keep working. Like, they're in this sort of perpetual state of energy where like gas is lasting forever in their cars, battery is lasting forever in their phones, but there's no signal, there's no connection. And they're like, well, are there local radio stations? Like, if we tune the radio, can we get anything? And they do get a broadcast from some town there on the road called Jubilation. And the broadcast it seems really normal, and then it's just devolves into like terrifying, like bestial noises. And when they drive through this town, it seems like it's this perfect little like pastel, like 50s, mid-century, like the beginning of the Edward Scissorhands town. And every family is a unit of 4, a mother, father, son, and daughter, and they are all having like a dinner on their lawns. Like, it's the exact like Norman Rockwell image you would see of a family gathered around a table for dinner, but it's all on the lawn,
right? Where the houses are just pristine, white picket fence, American dream, but they're all the exact same, like everywhere. What a weird movie that was, too. Like they have some really striking imagery in this, even down to later on in the show where they encounter this humanoid figure that is nothing but like static, like what you see on like an old TV, that like black and white snow static stuff. Like stuff like that is really, really interesting. Even again, there's some things that I don't know what happened exactly in this thing, but there's like they end up coming across a city that is it seems deserted for the most part, but there is
that city is
something
fascinating to me.
And here's the thing, they don't describe what these things are except for calling them they, to know that there are multiple of them. and they have humanoid screams.
Yeah.
That's all we know. That's the only descriptions that they that they gave you. And yeah, like that is the like stuff like that can be haunting and can be scary not knowing that stuff. But also kind of like I said, there's a lot in the sound design. Like it relies a lot on the sound design and sometimes to its detriment, where stuff like that kind of took me out of it. It's just like, I don't even know what's happening now. Like I don't know.
Yeah, what do I picture?
Like, are these monsters? Are they creatures? Are they humans? Are they zombies? What?
Right. What is the difference between monster and creature? Do I have to figure this out now? Like, you're not giving me any clues. I do love the set piece, though, of a city that is not decrepit. It seems like it is like a perfectly modern, normal looking big city, just with not a soul in it. That is so chilling. Like, I like the idea of it being post-apocalyptic, not in setting, just purely in the absence of people.
Yeah.
You never really see that.
Stuff like that was really interesting. Let's dive into the sound design more. Or do you have something else to say?
Oh yeah, no, that works. Yeah, I was going to say, I think one of the most effective instances of the sound design is when they hit, it's towards the end where they hit that forest, and that's as far as Rob has ever gone. He's like, nobody knows what's beyond this point. Everything we see from here on out is new. And they're driving through this really, really dense forest. And out of nowhere, a deer hits their car. Just like runs out in the road. They can't see it. They can't swerve. A deer hits the car and they get out and they're like, oh my God, what do we do? Do we move it? Can we drive around it? And they notice the deer is pregnant. And then you like hear the deer give birth to a human baby.
Like one does.
That is that's what, and then the baby like rapidly ages like it's a baby, and they turn their backs on it for a couple minutes, and then it's like a toddler.
Drive away, and then they see it again, and it's like full grown adult. Just like, what is this? What's happening? I thought you were one of my favorite instances of the sound design just being awesome. Was I think slightly after that, when they are in the middle of that stampede. It's not just one deer, but all like the herd of deer going.
Yeah.
That was incredible. I mean, I listened to this with headphones in, not these big ones. I had little small ones, but still, like that, it sounded fantastic. The sound design does play a lot with like the stereo sound and putting things on the left and the right, which I know now that there have been some podcasts out there that does the which I think Apple has now rebranded it as like spatial audio. This does not have that, but that spatial I would love an audio drama podcast that uses spatial audio, in the sense that if I turn my head this way, like the sounds stay like wherever they are. So I could like look to Rob and I could hear him, and I can hear Tessa Thompson's character of Alice behind me. But if I look back towards where she is, it changes to the front of me. I think that would be fantastic. But this only has the like stereo left right stuff, which I think they use to their advantage.
Another one of my favorite things in this podcast that isn't even really part of the podcast is just that voice at the beginning of every episode that says, hello, listeners. Please take caution when you're operating a motor vehicle, because it might seem like sounds are coming from in front of or behind you. Just that warm, folksy voice of whoever that narrator is,
like
just giving you that one safety message. I love it. So calming. It sounds
like it's supposed to be a ghost story. Like, ooh, listeners, be careful while listening to this in a car.
It sounds It sounds
he has
warmer
a deeper
than that.
voice
Like,
than
it
me, right?
sounds
They do have that like really nice hound that they're like, let's pump the bass on this guy's voice. Sounds great.
Mm-hmm. Like, he sounds like he's like the voice you hear when you're entering a dark ride, like you're going down Big Thunder Mountain Railroad or something. Like you hear him before you start, like you're going on an adventure, and but it's truly an adventure. Like it's
Keep
not that
all arms and
spooky to me.
legs
It's
inside
sort of
the vehicle.
folksy and warm and like grandfatherly.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sound design is always really, really awesome. Like they have great sound effects. It sounds good, but then my problem was that sometimes it relies on it a little bit too much, and there were characters that died, and I really don't know how they died. I guess they kind of mentioned it afterwards, and then I was like, oh, I guess that's how they died, right? But yeah, there's things that just sound effects of people screaming or squelching, some kind of like blood, like obviously some kind of like sword or knife is like being stabbed into someone or something, right? I don't know.
Sword. This isn't Red Sonja. We don't have swords anymore.
I don't know how big the thing was. They don't say. You could have Cloud's Buster sword from Final Fantasy VII. It's like a 7-foot long sword. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, like that's the thing. Like on one hand, I felt like the story was, for better or for worse, predictable enough that I was like, I can kind of figure out what's happening here in this thing, but I'm not 100% certain. And yeah, the sound helped me kind of piece it together, but again, not certain exactly. And some things they didn't explain, some things they did be like, did you just see him get his arm chopped off? Like all that stuff. And like that's like, oh, okay, so that sound was him, getting hurt. But that's the thing is like, if the writing needs to be predictable for me to piece together what's happening, is the writing all that good? I have to put that question out there. But I also don't feel like the writing was bad. But like that's the thing. I felt like the writing knew and understood the medium enough to be like, hey, this is audio. Like the whole story is being told in that. There is no visuals. And I think them being like sponsored or produced by Sonos, they probably could get a little money or some more producers in on this show. And that's why it sounded so fantastic. And so I'm wondering if it was, what's the guy's name? Jack something. Who wrote this? Let me pull up the Wikipedia. Jack Anderson. Yes, that's the right name.
Was it Jack Anderson? I wanted to credit this earlier. I looked, they list all these credits at the end of the episode, but they're not written in like the episode descriptions or in like the series description of my podcast app.
Jack was being like, okay, I want to, like, I'll stop writing here and stop having characters speak or say things in hopes that the audio will lead them to that. And in a sense it does. So he's not wrong, right? Like it's not necessarily bad writing, but also it has to be predictable for me to, I don't know. Do you see what I'm wrestling with here? I think I'm not describing it.
So I think one of the biggest oversights, which I say oversight, I don't know if it's necessarily the creator team. It could be me. Like I was working while I was re-listening to this. I think it's towards the end. It's like after the thing with the deer, after the confrontation with Blue Jay, Alice is injured. And it's not until like the next episode that you realize her arm got ripped off. I'm like, she's missing an arm? I can't hear that she's missing an arm.
Did she not have an arm the entire show? and I just don't know that?
No, I think like it's something in that scuffle with Blue Jay and like with who's still around at that point, maybe Lilith. It's like the next episode where Rob's helping to patch her up, and she says, "My arm
he
hurts."
Mentioned
why does it hurt?
Yeah,
and he says, "Oh, it's something called phantom limb syndrome. I saw guys have this in the war."
Exactly.
Where'd your arm go? What's this?
Exactly.
Like it's new. It
like,
just
I
happened.
think that is the most egregious one of just like, whoa, wait, what? What happened here? What?
Yeah.
When did this happen? But yeah, they're like.
Mm-hmm. And again, you can hear that she has been hurt, but unless she's like, even if she says, my arm,
Right.
how do I know exactly what has happened to the arm? Like, I need a little bit more detail,
Yes,
and you
I
don't
agree.
have to narrate everything exactly. I guess that's sort of the trick of it, is that this is just, these are found recordings. There are certain things that Alice is doing that is narration, that is a deliberate interview or notes she's doing for this article. But other times it's like, this is just still recording while an event happens. Like she's not still in journalist mode telling you what has happened. So like you just hear naturalistic audio, which is naturalistic, but I can't tell specifically what has happened. And sometimes it's like, I really feel like I needed something more specific, even if you had to awkwardly spell it out, even if you had to sort of break the naturalism for a moment. I'd rather have that than like 40 minutes later,
like
where did her arm go?
I appreciate that audio dramas or audio fiction as a medium is exploring more ways to tell their stories, right? I think that's fantastic. Because when they first started to get popular, it was always the like, I'm the investigative journalist and I'm working for it, and like, here's my record. And it was, you only ever got the little small snippets of recordings that investigative journalist or the like did, right?
Yes.
Or it's like found footage stuff. So someone is documenting themselves going through these tapes of something else, right? Like they stuck to like, I have to be recording it. Whereas more and more now you're starting to see a more naturalistic thing. We don't have to be recording it. Like that's just an arbitrary limitation that we put on to try and justify why this is an audio drama in the first place. But you don't necessarily need that. Like it can be a movie for your mind, right? As I say jokingly, but the point stands, right? Like you can have that great audio, like sound effects and all that stuff, and that helps. It absolutely did, and that can just be the story, which I like. So I applaud them for taking a road more like that, where not everything, because even Alice's stuff, you're right, is being recorded. She's documenting it, but they don't always draw attention to the fact that like, no, speak into the mic, right? Like it is more just this naturalistic, like, here's the event that's happening, and that's it.
Yeah. I do like that there is a variety of formats in that I am deliberately narrating something. I am deliberately interviewing people. Now the microphone is still left on. Like you get a little bit of everything that the
Absolutely.
format could.
And then
do.
Let me look up the guy's name. Who's the other guy on the regular? Tom, right? That's his name?
Her friend? Tom. Yeah, let's talk about this framing device. What did you think of Tom?
And I think one of my second favorite bits of the show was him going to Alice's parents and just his experience with their, like, it's they don't remember her, but it's not like she never existed. Like she has existed in this world. The phenomenon that's happening is that there is now this absence of something there, and people are reacting to that absence of just like, I forgot something, but I don't know what it was, and it's almost driving them insane to just like what was this? What is this? And not like I was like, okay, phone, wallet, keys. Oh my god, that's what I forgot. But like, just this, there was something I was supposed to do, and I don't know what.
Yeah, like part of Tom's investigation is that
Yep.
Alice was a journalism student. Like she's always been a journalist. So he goes back to their university. He goes to like the school paper archives. And he's like, I know she wrote a front page story on this day. So he goes to that like paper copy of the record of the newspaper, and the front page is just missing. It's not like they overwrote her front page story with another front page story. The just front page isn't there. And the archivist is like, that's weird. I don't know why we would have archived an incomplete issue. And then he goes to her parents' house. And his dad takes him up. Her dad takes him up to this room, and he's like, I have receipts for every piece of furniture in this room. This dates back 20-something years.
Yes.
Why have I been buying furniture for this room for 20-something years? What is this room for? I walk in here sometimes and I forget why I walked in. Why do I do that?
But just to see their pain and their suffering, to like, there was something significant.
Yes.
That we now no longer remember. I thought that was just a great storytelling all around. That one was fantastic. Heartbreaking.
Yes. I do like that there are differences among the different people who knew Alice and how well they know her. Like Tom's mom is just like who had met Alice, who liked Alice, but she's still distant enough that it's like, weird that you keep talking about this Alice person, Tom. I don't know what you're talking about. And then you meet Alice's parents, and there's this like massive gulf in their lives that they just can't explain. It's not like they had a daughter and they died. They don't know they ever had a daughter. Like they've experienced this extreme loss that they just don't have any sort of idea or words for. None of them are going to think, we must have had a child who then disappeared in some metaphysical realm. I bet that's it. They're like, we don't know what's wrong with us.
Man, that one was very good. I almost kind of wish we got to spend more time with him, or like one of the episodes was only him or mostly him, right? Where like, because they only do the like, here's like the 5 or 10 minutes that we spend with him, and then the majority of it is with Alice. I kind of wish that maybe somewhere halfway in there it was swapped, right? Where like we start with Alice, and it like something is happening or like just finishing, and she sends off one of those emails, and like that's the end of her segment, and then we follow Tom for the rest of it. Because at the end of the day, I almost feel like I don't know him very well, other than that he is looking for her. There's a few things that we know, but
yes, like I wish we did know a little bit more about him. Like, is he a real skeptic? Is he the sort of guy who's like, I think ghosts are real, I think UFOs are real? I've never considered this sort of thing before. Like, where is he in his belief system? I do like that we learn, like, he's never been far away from where he grew up, and like he sort of had bigger goals in college, but now he's just like, I think he's like a history major or something, but he's never like been to any of the places of the history he studied. He just works in like a bicycle repair shop, which itself is like a mode of transport. Like he could go cycling across, any part of the world, but he's still just there in England somewhere. And he's like, she's been so many places. She's done so many things. I've never been anywhere. And he's always sort of envied that of her, or like felt smaller compared to her. You wonder if this is one of the reasons why he never asked her out. Like, Alice is so larger than life. She's so bright. She's so clear. She's so worldly. She knows exactly who she is. I don't really know who I am. I don't know where I'm going. I don't have a lot of aspiration or drive like she does. And it's not until, she starts sending him these messages that then he starts being a more active person. He starts traveling. He goes to America for the first time, trying to find the news media.
The one instance of me getting voices mixed up is when he went to New York, or wherever he went in. I think it was Phoenix, maybe. I don't know. Anyways,
Chicago?
The woman that greets him, I was like, "Oh, it's Alice. How did she get out? Like, what happened here?" I just not her. Someone else entirely. Doesn't even know her. Just like met her on a message board. Here is another like paranormal investigator in the area, right? So that was the only time of like me mixing up someone's voice in the show. But I think the biggest unexplained mystery in this show, to me, at least, is why him? Why did she send this stuff to him? Like, there's no reason. Like, of all the people in the world, like, this is someone, like, your life ended up going in a separate direction. Like, you hadn't seen or talked to her in like a year or two. Sure, you were flatmates in college, but like, sometimes that happens. You just grow apart. So like, why him? What about him made it like, I need to send these to him?
She does, when she thinks she could die at any time, and she's sending these messages. She sends them to her parents, and she sends one to Tom. And she does give the impression that I always wished we were closer. I always wished I would have come back and stayed in contact with you. I just sort of got lost in my own journey. I was constantly pursuing. I didn't feel like I could just slow down and like be still somewhere. Be still somewhere with you.
Do you read that as romantic?
Seems like he was like the opportunity. Maybe just like, we're friends. I feel like we could have been best friends if I would have let myself slow down and spend that time with you. I don't know.
I don't know if that's a strong enough reason in my mind. Because again, if you think you're about to die or be on some dangerous expedition, why would you go for the one like the guy you were longing after, whether it's romantically or platonically, to like, I haven't talked to you in years. Versus like, hey, you're my roommate now. If I need help, like, here, know that this is what I'm doing. Like, it just kind of seems arbitrary that she sends it to him. And I wish there was more of like, oh, like you were dreaming of like being a detective when you grew up and got out of college, or you're a hacker and you know how to do that. Right. Like, I don't know. Or is he into the paranormal stuff and is more of a paranormal investigator thing. And that's why he would take an interest. But we're not really given that, except what you mentioned of like, maybe we could have been friends in another life, I guess.
I would have liked a bit more to flesh out that relationship. And what you're saying, like, what out of anybody you could have thought of, why do you think of Tom in this moment? What do you think Tom's going to do?
Why is Alice emailing me? Spam. This
isn't a bicycle repair problem.
If this had gotten like caught in his spam folder, because she had never sent him an email before, right? And she just
unknown sender.
Oh man. But yeah, I don't know if I have too much else to say on this show.
I enjoy it. I really like the imagination behind the world that they enter into. I really love the premise of the show. That's something that made me want to come back to it. Maybe want to share it with you and add it to our list of like audio dramas we know. I like that this is a mix of different formats, the purposeful and the accidental sort of recording. It's got the different layers to it. And think you mentioned earlier that this has been optioned for a TV show.
At least according to the Wikipedia, it says Amazon Studios has secured the rights to the Left Right game. Tessa Thompson will be an executive producer on this series, and Jack Anderson, who wrote the audio version, will be writing the series and also serving as executive producer. So there you go. Good stuff. Yeah, like I
Nice.
think this is a story that has legs. I think it will be interesting visually, especially if you can see this deer giving birth to a child and some static creature and these things inside the city. What does the hitchhiker look like?
Yeah.
Right? That's what I want to know.
Oh, I was picturing the rules from Serenity. It's just that egghead with a briefcase. I want to see the scene where the car, where I think it's even Lilith's car, just sinks into the pavement like it's quicksand.
What's happening there?
That's wild.
Last thing I do want to say is shout out to Apollo. I liked him. I thought he was a good character.
Yeah,
felt like he
very
died
good
too soon.
guy. Yeah, I would have liked it. I will say that everybody gets slowly picked off as the journey goes on, which you can see coming. You can imagine that is the format this story is going to follow. I do like that there's such a variety of deaths. There's like attacks, there's accidents, there's what happened with Bonnie and Clyde. Like, at least if every episode, like, somebody dies, you don't get the same death twice. I like that
stuff. But yeah, like I said, that's kind of about it. That's all that I have to say on the Left Right game. Go check it out wherever podcasts are sold. Well, Melissa, it is time for bingo, for us to check in on bingo. I'm pulling it up on screen right now. Bam, here we are. What did we get here? Treasure map, no. Wrong time, place for a heart-to-heart? No, not exactly. Take fast food name? No.
Didn't exactly get a ghost.
Let's see. Disguise? No. Death by electrocution? No. Character who's bad at cooking. Magical book? No.
I don't think I've got anything this week. I don't think anything. Like, there's a difference between journalistic notes and a diary.
More machine than man.
I can't get diary.
No sex scene set to music. They didn't randomly break into dance. I don't think I got anything on my bingo card. Yeah.
That we could hear.
Yeah, that we could hear. Man, because we already, so I already have time loop. I would say there is a time loop in this one. But I already have that down. I guess that's kind of it.
Yeah, nothing this week.
That's about it. Oh well, real slow on the bingo update this week, but that is a-okay. X out of that guy there. Yeah. Cool. Let's do recommendations. If people enjoyed this, what else might they recommend?
This reminds me very much of another Tessa Thompson project, the movie Annihilation, where some sort of an asteroid strikes part of Florida, and there's this weird shimmery haze over the area that like refracts DNA, and like everything in that bubble is like mutating. And she's one of this team of scientists who like goes into the bubble to explore and investigate and find out why the first team they sent in couldn't get out, find out what happened to them. Just the way everything is just mutated and morphed in that movie is is really inventive. Like, you truly are stepping into a world that at first seems like, oh, weird flowers are growing here. And then the farther in you get, you're like,
yeah.
All right, people are turning into trees.
We covered that here on the review show on number 71.
Yes.
The review show a long time ago. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so long ago. Yeah. And then for audio dramas, Welcome to Night Vale, maybe the biggest name in the game, also set in the Southwest. Uncanny County, a personal favorite of mine. This one is an episodic kind of Twilight Zone-y anthology of stories, just where weird things happen in a place called Uncanny County that also has kind of a Southwestern flavor to it. Check that out. You're sure to find an episode of Uncanny County you really enjoy.
Yep.
We also mentioned King Falls AM, which is an audio drama in the format of a late night radio show from this like tiny town in Colorado, where it's more of a comedy. Weird things happen, but it's not quite as surreal as this. It's more like, I'm pretty sure one of my neighbors is a werewolf, but I don't know how to prove it. I'm going to call the late night radio DJs and see if they have any advice. It's that one's pretty funny, pretty charming. And then what else did I have written down? Tannis. Tannis is
still going.
It's been running for several seasons. It originally started, I don't know. I don't think it is officially ended, so I imagine it will continue in some
Tannis
format.
is the grapples.
Tannis is a pod. You're right. I have listened to all of Tannis. The earlier stuff I've listened to a couple times over. I can't really tell you what Tannis is about or what happens. Like, I find the whole thing so peaceful and comforting to listen to. Like, I love the music on Tannis. I love just like the pattern and the cadence of like how the show is structured, the arc of every episode, the way all the actors talk. It's like how there's some people who will put on like an old episode of Law and Order to go to bed. Like, that's me and Tannis. Like, I really feel peaceful listening to it to the point where I can't tell you what happens. Like, I just lock in on keywords. I'm like, oh, that name means something. That guy is back, but I can't tell you who that guy is or exactly what he means. Right. I just know words. But check out Tannis. You're probably going to have a different reaction to it than I do. This is about a journalist who latches onto this sort of weird myth of something called Tannis that is so abstract. He's like, I don't know if this is a place. I don't know if this is a dimension. I don't know if this is a person or an event.
Yeah.
What is Tannis exactly? What is this sort of element of legend? Can I dig into this? Can I define it? And can I find it? And it does end up leaning into sort of a distortion of place. It's set in the Pacific Northwest, one of the spookiest regions out there. If you got a spooky podcast story, you put it in the Pacific Northwest or the Southwest. Nobody's ever made anything spooky happen in Missouri. And it does have cool like distortions of place like that, where you walk into a little cabin in the woods and you trace the wall with your hand and you find that you've been walking for hours, even though you know this is just a tiny cabin.
Exactly.
Like, it's that sort of stuff.
I have another podcast to recommend. This one is The Earth Collective, which, Melissa, you and I covered way back on episode 55.
Yes.
Almost 200 episodes ago. Wild. But yeah, this is a little more sci-fi, but the kind of caravan aspect of the left-right game really reminded me of the Earth Collective. Yeah. Humans have colonized a planet out in space, but the darkness on this planet, when their sun is not shining on it, is dark and mysterious, and things are out there and they don't know what exactly. Yes. And so society has to kind of constantly move to stay in the sunlight. And so it's this giant civilization, this giant society on this like train like caravan thing, and the main character is one of the mechanics that keeps these things running, and every so often they stop and explore what's out there and stuff like that, and it's really hilarious. I remember liking that one quite a bit. Was there another podcast that I wanted to? Yeah, so if you liked the bit about like Tom exploring and trying to figure out more stuff about Alice and where she went, and then encountering her parents and stuff like that, that really reminded me of, believe it or not, Hunt the Truth season 1, which is an audio drama podcast about Master Chief from the Halo video games. It was one of those like cross media marketing campaign things. Like, this is supposed to be a lead up into one of the other games and stuff like that. And I in good faith, I can only recommend season 1 of that. I thought season 1 was actually phenomenal. That like one of my all-time favorite audio drama pieces. Season 2, unfortunately, not very good. I don't think it like just completely nosedived in terms of quality. But the main character in that is played by Keegan-Michael Key, I believe. And he plays a journalist that is trying to find what happened to Master Chief. He's kind of gone AWOL, all of the stuff. And if you don't know the lore of Halo, Master Chief is this kind of like super soldier-like character. I guess he is a super soldier, but the people in the program that created him were kidnapped as kids and replaced by clones, like kid clones. So the family had no idea that they were kidnapped, and those clones were designed to then get sick and die. So that they just think that person is dead naturally, stuff like that. So he's like piecing together like all this info about like what happened to Master Chief, who is he, like all of this stuff. It's a really good mystery. I highly recommend it. And then oddly, this kind of reminds me of like Mad Max Fury Road, of just like dirt caravan cars.
Yeah,
that's all I have
sure.
on that one though, right?
Dirt.
Anyways, there you go, caravans.
If you like cars.
But that's all I got for recommendations for this one. Which means, Melissa, it is my turn to do some of the pitches.
Yes.
I have 3 pitches as usual, but Melissa, from the time this is recorded to next week, Valentine's Day will have happened. So I want to do some Valentine's Day themed pitches, but maybe more described as extra spicy themed pitches. We're gonna get some spicy stuff for this next week here. So I have a comic book, a TV show, and a movie that we can check out here. I will start with the movie. This is available on Amazon Prime. This is The Handmaiden. I love this movie.
Oh, yes.
I checked it out kind of because I had heard some good things about it. It's directed by Park Chan-wook. This is a kind of drama, thriller, romance. It is by far the most erotic film that I have seen. I can barely describe the plot of this in the sense that what you think this movie is about, or what the synopsis would be, is not where the movie ends up at all. I will say that the movie is filmed in 3 parts. And yeah, things happen. There is this woman who is hired to be a handmaiden for this one guy whose wife is sick, and that's kind of what the movie gives you at the start. and then it goes to some wild places, twists and turns galore, things you didn't see coming. And yeah, it just ends up being this like erotic romance story mixed in with a psychological thriller. But yeah, great stuff. Great stuff with that. So that's pitch number 1, The Handmaiden. Pitch number 2, we'll go to the television show here. It's 8 episodes for the first season of this show. It is called The Naked Director. This is a Japanese show on Netflix, and it follows the story of Maranishi's unusual and dramatic life filled with big ambitions as well as spectacular setbacks in his attempt to turn Japan's porn industry on its head. Yeah, this seems really, really interesting about Japanese porn and stuff like that. It's a comedy drama. It's set in the 80s, so it's kind of a period piece. I don't know anything about this. I haven't watched it, but it did get renewed for a second season, which premiered in 2021. So if you like these initial first 8 episodes, there is more of it. I don't know if it was gone on for like a season 3 or if there's going to be one, but I watched the trailer on this and it looks like a lot of fun. That's pitch number 2, The Naked Director. That's available on Netflix. Pitch number 3 is a comic book. This is a comic that I have wanted to read for a long, long time. I have a weekly comic book podcast that I listen to, and they're one of the hosts on that show. His name is Bob. The podcast is Talking Comics. Bob is fantastic. If you know who I'm talking about, this guy is great. He is an older gentleman. And he is one of the most knowledgeable people on comics that I know. He has been buying comics since like the Fantastic Four first got started. And he just has this encyclopedic knowledge. But yeah, just I think being this older gentleman, it may be surprising for some people out there that he is on this weekly comic book podcast. And then one week, I remember he came to the show being like, I read this comic called Sunstone. And he proceeds to describe what it's about. And says, according to Amazon, 2 women deal with the modern themes of sex, relationships, and fetishism in this erotic romantic comedy. So beware all who enter, because to quote a few thousand readers on DeviantArt, I'm not into BDSM, but this story, I get it. This is about a BDSM relationship between 2 women and the struggles of their relationship. It's not just about the sex and the stuff that they do, but their lives and the people they meet and their friends. And since Bob started raving about this book, about just how fantastic it was, I was like, I need to read this book. So yeah, that's pitch number 3. Pitch number 1, The Handmaiden. Pitch number 2, The Naked Director. Pitch number 3, Sunstone. And to be fair, Sunstone, book 1, which covers the first 3 volumes, is what I would like to do there.
Okay. Yeah. Sunstone sounds familiar. I think you've brought that up before.
In passing, but I've never actually pitched it on the show. I know that for certain.
That's intriguing. I think The Naked Director is also familiar. I think I've also come across that on Netflix and like penciled it in for a later pitch. So good variety of stuff here. I am going to go with The Handmaiden because you've raved about it before. And Park Chan-wook just had a new movie come out called Decision to Leave
really
that I've heard so many people talk about. And I want some... I need some context for who this director is.
Absolutely.
So let's watch The Handmaiden.
If you are familiar with Park Chan-wook, he is the director of Old Boy. If you remember that, he did Snowpiercer back in 2013, and then he did The Handmaiden in 2016. He's the director. He's one of the writers, the producers. Stuff like that. And he's also one of the producers on the Snowpiercer television show there. So he's done some good stuff for sure. So I'm excited.
Nice.
That is The Handmaiden for this next week. And then don't forget, because the week after that will be the end of the month, we will be continuing our coverage on The Fast and the Furious. We are doing the second trilogy in that, 4, 5, and 6. So just keep that in the back of your mind and start watching those, because that's what we'll do here at the end of the month. Yeah.
What a time in film. We're going to watch this artsy international film and then
the
Fast and
Saga.
Furious.
Good stuff indeed. But that's about it. That's all I got for this here podcast. Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, show where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kid shows you feel like.
And if you guys want to stay up to date with me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer. If you guys would like to follow all of the stuff that we do here at The Whatnauts, we are at The Whatnauts. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. Of course, if you're watching the YouTube version of this, go check out some of our other videos right over here. Maybe I'll put the Earth Collective one over there or something like that. But yeah, this has been number 241 of the Whatnauts Review Show. We will see you all next time. Bye.